When my son said, "Don't argue with my wife in her house," I felt the floor tilt beneath me. But this was my house, every nail, every brick, every sleepless night that built it. At 69, I'd buried a husband, raised 2 boys, and paid every bill. Now one of them stood in my kitchen, treating me like a guest in my own life. That day, something inside me shifted. Not rage, resolve. By the end of the week, the locks would change. And my son would learn, respect isn't optional, not even for family. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I heard my son say it. Don't argue with my wife in her house. The words landed like ice water. I stood at the counter. My hands were wet from the sink. The deed was upstairs, in the drawer. My name on it, Clara Hayes, 69 years old, widow, retired baker. This house was mine. Every brick, every nail, every inch of floorboard. My husband and I built it. Mark's hands were rough from sawdust. Mine were scarred from oven racks. We laid the foundation in summer heat. We painted walls in October rain. The mortgage took us 23 years to kill. Mark died 4 years ago. Heart attack. In the driveway, holding a bag of mulch. I kept the house. I kept the garden. I kept breathing. Noah was my firstborn. 37 now. Tall like his father. Stubborn like me. He used to come by on Sundays. We'd shop together. He'd carry the heavy bags. He remembered my favorite scones. Cinnamon sugar. From the bakery on Maple Street. Then he married Ava Benton. 2 years ago. June wedding. White tent. Open bar. She was 35. Marketing job. Corporate smile. Designer heels that clicked on my linoleum. She walked through my house like a stranger inspecting damage. Too small. Too outdated. Too cluttered. Too much of me. It started with the curtains. She took them down one Tuesday. Said the room needed light. I came home from errands. The windows were naked. My floral curtains were folded on the couch. I didn't say anything that day. Then it was the plates. I kept my mother's china in the cabinet. Blue trim. Chipped edges. 60 years old. Ava moved them to the basement. Put her white modern ones in their place. She said they matched better. Matched what? I didn't ask. The third time, she touched my garden. I grew basil on the east windowsill. Roses along the fence. Mark planted those roses. She moved the basil to the bathroom. Said the kitchen was too crowded. She trimmed the roses. Said they looked wild. I found her outside with shears. Petals on the ground like evidence. That's when I spoke. I asked her not to move my things. My voice was calm. My hands were steady. She looked at Noah, not at me. Noah's jaw tightened. His eyes went cold. The boy I raised on casseroles stared at me like I was the problem. He said I was being difficult. He said Ava was trying to help. He said I needed to adjust. Adjust to what? Disappearing in my own home. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked upstairs, closed the door, sat on the bed Mark and I bought in 1984. The room smelled like lavender. Like me. Like the life I built. I could hear them downstairs. Their voices low. Ava's laugh. Sharp and bright. The fridge hummed. The furnace clicked on. The house was mine. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. That night I lay awake. The ceiling fan turned slow circles. I thought about Mark. About the years we fought for this place. I thought about dignity. About what it costs to keep it. I thought about my son's face. The way he looked through me. As if I were already gone. By morning, I had decided. I would not be a guest in a house I paid for twice. First with money, then with years of my life. I would not shrink. I would not apologize. I would not fade. Not in the home where my husband died. Not in the kitchen where I baked my son's birthday cakes. Not in the garden where his roses still bloomed every June. They could stay, but the rules were mine. Or they could leave. I got up, made coffee, watered the basil. The morning light came through the window. Gold and clean. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Resolve. It didn't come like thunder. It came like a door closing. Quiet, final, absolutely mine. I knew what I had to do. By the end of the week, the locks would change. And my son would learn what his father taught him long ago. Respect isn't optional. Not even for family. Especially not for family. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The locksmith came on Friday night. His name was Gary. He wore a blue windbreaker. He smelled like cigarettes and diesel. He didn't ask questions. I liked that about him. The old locks were brass. Tarnished. Loose in their holes. Mark installed them in 1989. They'd turned 10,000 times since then. Gary worked quietly. His drill whined. Metal shavings fell on the welcome mat. New deadbolts. New knobs. Front door. Back door. Garage. Steel. Heavy. The kind that don't give. He handed me 3 keys on a ring. They were cold in my palm. I paid him cash. He was gone by 8. The house felt different. Tighter. Mine again. I made tea. Sat in the living room. Waited. Noah and Ava came home just after midnight. I heard the car in the driveway. Doors slamming. Footsteps on the porch. The key scraped in the lock. Once. Twice. It wouldn't turn. Ava's voice cut through the door. Confused. Then irritated. Noah tried the knob. Shook it. Tried again. I sat in the dark. The lamp was off. The TV was off. Just me and the sound of them failing to get in. Noah knocked. Soft at first. Then harder. Mom. His voice was gentle. Then louder. Mom, open the door. I didn't move. He went around back. I heard him at the kitchen door. Same problem. Ava was on her phone. Her voice high and tight. Calling someone. Noah came back to the front. He knocked again. Longer this time. Mom, I know you're in there. Please. The porch light painted them yellow through the curtain. I watched their shadows. Shifting. Frustrated. Uncertain. Ava said something sharp. Noah's shadow grew still. They stood there for 10 minutes. Maybe more. Then the car started. Headlights swept across the living room wall. They left. The house settled into silence. I finished my tea. It had gone cold. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel cruel. I felt like a woman who'd stopped apologizing for existing. That night I slept better than I had in months. No blow dryer at 6 in the morning. No perfume choking the hallway. No Ava rearranging my spice rack. No Noah pretending not to notice. Just quiet, deep and clean. I woke at 7. Made coffee. Black. 2 sugars. The basil was back on the kitchen windowsill. Where it belonged. Sunlight hit the leaves. They were greener than I remembered. I watered them. Wiped the counter. Opened the window. Cool air came in. October air. Smelling like wet leaves and chimney smoke. The phone rang at 10. Noah. His voice was strained. Tired. He needed clothes. He needed his laptop. He needed documents for work. I told him we could talk. But respect came first. He said I was being unreasonable. He said this was his home too. I reminded him whose name was on the deed. He went quiet. Then he tried a different approach. Softer, almost pleading. Mom, we can fix this. Just let us back in. We'll talk. I told him talking was easy. Change was harder. He said I couldn't just lock them out. He said it might be illegal. I asked him if disrespecting me in my own house was legal. Silence again. Longer this time. I told him I loved him. I told him I always would. But love didn't mean surrender. He hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in the kitchen. The phone warm in my hand. Outside, a crow landed on the fence. Cawed twice. Flew away. The coffee maker gurgled. The clock ticked. The house breathed around me. I put the phone down. Sat at the table Mark built. The wood was scratched. Stained. 30 years of meals on its surface. I ran my hand across it. Felt every groove. This table held Thanksgiving dinners. Birthday cakes. Homework and tax forms. It held my life. And no one was going to take it from me. Not even my son. By afternoon, my younger son called. Liam. 34. IT specialist. Steady. Practical. He'd heard from Noah. He wanted to know what happened. I told him. Simply. No drama. Liam was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Good, he said. About time. He asked if I needed anything. Groceries. Company. A lawyer's number. I told him I was fine. I told him I appreciated him. He said Noah would come around. He said Ava needed to learn boundaries. He said he was proud of me. Those words sat in my chest like warm bread. When we hung up, I felt less alone. The afternoon passed slowly. I cleaned. I cooked. I listened to the radio. A storm rolled in around 5. Rain drummed on the roof. I made soup. Tomato. From a recipe Mark loved. The smell filled the kitchen. Tangy and rich. I ate at the table. Just me. One bowl. One spoon. The rain kept coming. The windows fogged. I thought about Noah. About the motel room he was probably in. I thought about Ava. About whatever anger was building in her. I didn't feel sorry for them. Consequences aren't cruelty. They're clarity. That night I locked the doors. The new locks clicked solid. I checked every window. Every latch. The house was secure. Sealed tight. I went upstairs. Changed into my nightgown. Brushed my teeth. In the mirror, I saw my mother's face. Strong jaw. Tired eyes. She survived the depression. Raised 4 kids. Buried a husband young. She taught me something I'd forgotten. A woman who surrenders her home surrenders herself. I turned off the light. Got into bed. The sheets were cool. The pillow soft. Outside, the rain turned to drizzle. Then stopped. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The house creaked. Settling. Resting. I closed my eyes. And I did not feel alone. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Money runs out faster than pride. By Wednesday, Noah called from a different number. His cell service had been cut off. He was at a motel near the highway. The roadside inn. $49 a night. Stained carpet and thin walls. His voice sounded hollow, like he'd been awake too long. He needed his work documents. His laptop charger. Clean shirts. I told him he could pick them up Saturday. Between 2 and 3. He asked if we could talk then. Really talk. I said talking required listening. He'd forgotten how to do that. The line went quiet. I could hear traffic in the background. A truck horn. He said Ava was losing her mind. She blamed me for everything. I told him blame was easier than accountability. He didn't argue. That was new. When he hung up, I sat at the kitchen table. The clock on the wall ticked. Loud in the silence. I made a list. Documents he'd need. Clothes. Toiletries. I packed them in a cardboard box. Sealed it with tape. The box sat by the door. Waiting. Thursday afternoon, someone knocked. Not Noah. A woman's voice. Sharp and confident. I looked through the peephole. Green dress. Dark hair pulled back. Designer handbag. Ava's sister. Sloane Benton. I'd met her at the wedding. She worked in real estate. Talked about markets and investments. She smiled when I opened the door. The smile didn't reach her eyes. She asked if we could chat. Just a few minutes. I let her in. I'm not rude by nature. She sat on the couch. Crossed her legs. Set her bag beside her. The house smelled like lemon cleaner. I'd scrubbed the floors that morning. Sloane looked around, her gaze lingering on the old furniture. The faded curtains. She started with pleasantries. How was I feeling? Was I managing okay alone? Then she shifted, her voice softening into something rehearsed. She said family was everything. That we needed to stick together. She said Ava and Noah were struggling. The motel was expensive. Work was suffering. She said surely we could find a compromise. I asked her what compromise meant. She smiled again, tighter this time. She said maybe I was feeling overwhelmed. That living alone at my age was hard. She suggested I might be more comfortable somewhere smaller. Simpler. A senior community perhaps. Or assisted living. The words landed like stones. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't here for peace. She was here to push me out. I asked her how much Ava would sell my house for. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. She said no one was talking about selling. She said I was misunderstanding. I told her I understood perfectly. Then I asked her a question. Simple and direct. Had she ever built anything with her own hands? She blinked. Confused. I told her about the foundation. The cement mixer Mark rented in July heat. I told her about the walls. The paint. The floors we laid board by board. I told her we paid this house off in 23 years. $5 here. $10 there. Every month without fail. Sloane shifted in her seat. Her handbag slid slightly. She tried another approach. Softer now. Almost sympathetic. She said I didn't want to be alone at my age. Did I? The question hung in the air. I smiled. The way I used to smile at customers who complained about prices. Calm. Unbothered. Done with negotiation. I told her I'd rather be alone than disrespected. I told her loneliness was temporary. Dignity wasn't. Her face hardened. The mask slipping. She stood. Smoothed her dress. Picked up her bag. She said I was being unreasonable. That I'd regret this. She said first and last month's rent wasn't cheap. That Noah couldn't afford it. She said maybe I wanted my son to suffer. I walked to the door. Opened it. Cool air rushed in. The smell of cut grass and gasoline. I told her Noah was a grown man. He made his choices. I told her he could come home when he learned respect. She left without another word. Heels clicking down the porch steps. Her car was silver. New. It purred when she started it. I watched her drive away. The street empty behind her. Then I closed the door. Locked it. The house settled back into quiet. I made tea. Chamomile. Let it steep while I sat. The light through the window was golden. Late afternoon turning to evening. I thought about Sloane's words. About being alone. Mark used to say being alone and being lonely were different things. Alone was a choice. Lonely was a condition. I chose alone. Every time. That night I cooked chicken. Roasted with rosemary from the garden. The kitchen filled with the smell. Warm and earthy. I ate slowly. Chewing carefully. Tasting every bite. The TV murmured in the background. Some cooking show. A British woman making pastries. After dinner, I washed the dishes. Dried them. Put them away. Everything in its place. I went upstairs. Ran a bath. Hot water and lavender salts. The steam clouded the mirror. The window fogged. I sank into the water. Let it cover my shoulders. My body ached. Knees. Back. The usual complaints of 69 years. But my mind was clear. I thought about the wedding. Noah in his suit. Ava in white lace. They'd looked so sure of themselves. So certain. Love made people foolish. Made them think the rules didn't apply. But houses have rules. Families have rules. And I was done bending mine. The water cooled. I got out. Dried off. Put on my nightgown. In the bedroom, I opened the window. Let the night air in. Somewhere a dog barked. A car passed. A door slammed. Normal sounds. Neighborhood sounds. I climbed into bed. The sheets were fresh. I'd changed them that morning. I lay there, eyes open, watching shadows move across the ceiling. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel cruel. I felt like a woman who knew her worth. And that was enough. The house creaked, settling into darkness. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves scratched against the siding. I closed my eyes. Sleep came easy, deep and dreamless. The sleep of someone who'd stopped negotiating with people who didn't respect her. Tomorrow was Friday, then Saturday. Noah would come for his things. And we'd see if he'd learned anything. Or if he still had more to lose. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Friday morning came with rain. Heavy, steady, the kind that turns gutters into rivers. I made oatmeal, added raisins and brown sugar. Ate standing by the window. The street was empty. Gray sky, gray pavement, water pooling at the curbs. My phone rang at 9:30. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. No's voice came through. Tired, defeated. He'd called in sick to work. Said he couldn't focus. Couldn't sleep. The motel room smelled like cigarettes and bleach. The walls were thin. Last night someone fought in the next room. Shouting until 3 in the morning. Ava wasn't speaking to him. She blamed him for not fixing this. He sounded 20 again, lost and scrambling. I listened, said nothing. He asked if he could come by earlier. Before Saturday. He said he needed to talk. Really talk. Without Ava. I told him to come at noon. The line went quiet. Rain drummed against my window. He thanked me, his voice cracking slightly. When he hung up, I stared at the phone. This was the sound of a man hitting bottom. I put the dishes in the sink. Wiped down the counter. The house felt colder than usual. I turned up the thermostat. The furnace kicked on. Warm air whispered through the vents. I sat in the living room. Mark's photo watched from the mantel. He wore his flannel shirt. The green one. His smile slight and crooked. I asked him what he'd do. Out loud. To the empty room. The house answered with silence. But I knew. Mark never tolerated disrespect. Not from anyone. At 11:45, a car pulled into the driveway. Not No's truck. A sedan. Blue. Dented front bumper. He got out slowly. No umbrella. Rain soaking his jacket. He looked thinner. His face unshaven. Dark circles under his eyes. I opened the door before he knocked. He stood on the porch. Dripping. shivering slightly. Water ran off his hair, down his neck, into his collar. I stepped aside. Let him in. He wiped his feet. Twice. A habit from childhood. The living room was warm. The lamp on. Soft yellow light. He sat on the couch. The same spot he'd sat 1,000 times. But now he sat on the edge. Uncertain. Like a guest. I made coffee. Brought him a towel. He dried his face. His hands. Folded the towel in his lap. Steam rose from the coffee mugs. The rain continued outside. He started talking. Slow at first. Then faster. He said he'd made a mistake. He said Ava got in his head. She wanted things her way. She wanted control. He went along. He said he didn't realize how bad it had gotten. He said he was sorry. That he never should have spoken to me that way. The words tumbled out. Messy. Honest. I sipped my coffee. Let him finish. When he stopped, the room felt heavier. I asked him a question. Simple. Direct. Had I ever been cruel to him in this house? He looked up. Eyes red-rimmed. Wet. No, he said. Never. The word hung between us. I asked him another question. Had I ever disrespected Ava before she disrespected me? He shook his head. Slower this time. The truth was settling in. Heavy as wet concrete. I told him what he already knew but hadn't admitted. She moved my things without asking. She erased me piece by piece. And he let her. Worse. He defended her. His shoulders sagged. The coffee mug trembled in his hands. He said he didn't know how to fix it. I told him fixing started with honesty. With choosing sides. Not her side or my side. The side of what's right. He nodded. But the nod looked exhausted. Outside, the rain shifted. Lighter now. A steady patter. A truck passed. Its engine loud then fading. Noah stared at his coffee. Steam curling. Disappearing. He asked what I wanted him to do. I told him I wanted him to go to work tomorrow. I wanted him to stop calling in sick. Stop hiding in motel rooms. I wanted him to drink water. Eat real food. Shower. Shave. I wanted him to stop trying to negotiate with consequences. His eyes met mine. Confused. I explained it like I used to when he was young. Actions have results. Disrespect has distance. That's not punishment. That's cause and effect. He asked if I'd ever let them back in. I told him that depended on them. Not on me. Respect wasn't a promise. It was a pattern. And patterns took time to prove. He set his coffee down. Rubbed his face with both hands. Behind him, the rain-streaked window blurred the world outside. He said Ava wouldn't apologize. She thought I was being vindictive. I told him vindictive was locking someone out for sport. I locked them out for survival. The difference mattered. He sat back, sinking into the cushions. For the first time, he looked like he understood. Not agreed, but understood. We sat in silence. The clock ticking. The furnace humming. Finally, he stood. Said he should go. I walked him to the door. Handed him the box of his things. He took it. Held it against his chest like a shield. At the door, he turned. Looked at me. He said he loved me. That he never stopped. I told him I knew. That I loved him too. But love without respect was just noise. He stepped into the rain. Lighter now but still falling. His car door slammed. The engine started. Headlights cut through the gray. I watched him back out. Turn. Disappear down the street. Then I closed the door. The house exhaled around me. I picked up the coffee mugs. Rinsed them. Set them in the drainer. The towel he'd used was still damp. I hung it over the oven handle. The rain stopped completely. Clouds thinning. Sunlight pushing through. I stood at the kitchen window. Watched light spread across the wet grass. The basil on the sill glowed green. Bright and alive. I touched a leaf. Soft. Fragrant. Mark's roses outside bent under the weight of rainwater. But they'd straighten. They always did. That night I made soup. Chicken and vegetables. From scratch. The smell filled the house. Warm. Comforting. Mine. I ate alone. Bowl on the table. Bread on the side. The TV played something forgettable. I wasn't really watching. After dinner, I washed up. Dried everything. Put it away. Upstairs, I changed into my nightgown. Brushed my teeth. The mirror showed a woman I recognized again. Tired. Gray-haired. But not defeated. Not pushed aside. Not invisible. I climbed into bed. The sheets cool and clean. Outside, a car passed. Headlights swept the ceiling. Then darkness again. And quiet. I thought about Noah's face. The way he finally heard me. Not just listened. Heard. It wasn't victory. It was a beginning. Maybe. Or maybe it was just another lesson he'd have to learn the hard way. Either way, the house was mine. The rules were mine. And I'd sleep just fine. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The call came Sunday afternoon. Ava's name on the screen. Not Noah's. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Her voice was different. Quieter. The sharp edges smoothed down. She asked if we could talk. Just the two of us. No Noah. No audience. Just her and me. I asked her what she wanted to say. She said not over the phone. In person. If I'd allow it. The word allow hung in the air. I told her Tuesday. 2 o'clock. Alone. She thanked me. Twice. Then the line went dead. I set the phone down. Stared at it. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked. A lawnmower started up. Sunday sounds. Normal sounds. But nothing felt normal anymore. Monday passed slowly. I cleaned. I baked. I waited. Lemon bread. Mark's favorite. The kitchen smelled like citrus and butter. I wrapped a loaf for Liam. He'd stop by after work. The rest I'd freeze. Or give to the church. Liam came at 6. Brought groceries. Milk. Eggs. Bread. Things I didn't ask for but needed. He sat at the table. Ate a slice of lemon bread. Drank coffee. He asked how I was holding up. I told him the truth. I was fine. Better than fine. He smiled. Said Noah called him yesterday. Sounded like hell. He said Ava was barely talking. Living on her phone. Crying in the bathroom. The motel manager was asking them to leave. Too many complaints. Noise. Arguments. Unpaid parking fees. Liam said they'd found an apartment. Small. Month to month. Expensive. They'd move in Friday. I nodded. Said nothing. He looked at me. Eyes steady. Dark like his father's. He asked if I'd take them back eventually. I told him that depended on them. Not on me. He finished his coffee. Stood. Kissed my forehead. At the door, he turned. Said he was proud of me. The words warmed me more than the coffee had. After he left, the house felt bigger. Quieter. I washed the dishes. Wiped the counter. Swept the floor. Everything in its place. Tuesday morning arrived cold and bright. October sun. Sharp and golden. I made the bed. Vacuumed the living room. Dusted the mantel. Not for Ava. For me. At 1:45, a car pulled up. Not the one I'd seen before. A rental. Gray. Generic. Ava got out slowly. No designer bag. No heels. Jeans. A plain sweater. Hair pulled back. No makeup. She looked younger, smaller, almost fragile. She carried flowers, red roses, too many, too bright. I opened the door before she knocked. She stood on the porch, the flowers awkward in her arms. She asked if she could come in. I stepped aside. She entered carefully, like walking into a museum. The living room was warm. Sunlight through the curtains, soft and yellow. She sat on the edge of the couch, set the flowers on the coffee table. They looked out of place, too vivid against the worn upholstery. I didn't offer coffee, didn't offer anything, just sat in Mark's chair. Waited. She folded her hands in her lap, unfolded them, folded them again. Then she started talking. Her voice was low, steady, no performance. She said she was sorry. Specifically sorry. Sorry for moving my things. Sorry for dismissing me. Sorry for the curtains. Sorry for the plates. Sorry for the basil and the roses. She said she'd been jealous. Of the house. Of the history. Of the way Noah talked about his childhood. About Mark. About me. She never had that. Her parents divorced when she was 6. Homes were temporary. Love was conditional. Survival meant control. When she married Noah, she wanted to erase the past. Build something new. Something that was hers. But she erased me instead. The words came out raw, unrehearsed. She said she knew I had every right to hate her. She said she wouldn't blame me if I never forgave her. She said she just wanted me to know she understood now. What she'd taken. What she'd destroyed. The room was silent. The clock ticking. The furnace humming. Outside, a car passed. Then another. I looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes were red. Swollen. No mascara to hide behind. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. This wasn't strategy. This was surrender. I asked her what she thought an apology was supposed to do. She looked up, confused. I told her apologies didn't erase actions. They acknowledged them. I told her sorry was a starting point, not a finish line. She nodded, slowly, like a student taking notes. I asked her what she was willing to do differently. She said anything, whatever it took. I leaned forward, hands on the armrests. I told her second chances lived on behavior, not words. If she came back, she followed my rules. In my house, she asked before moving anything, even a spoon. She disagreed like an adult. With words, with respect. She accepted no when it was mine to give. And if she couldn't do that, she stayed gone. Ava's face was pale, serious. She said she could do that. She would do that. I told her I'd believe it when I saw it. She nodded again. The nod looked heavier this time. We sat in silence. The sun shifted. Shadows lengthened. She asked if Noah knew she was here. I said I didn't know. I hadn't asked. She said he was trying. He'd gone back to work. Stopped drinking at night. He was quieter now, sadder, but more honest. She said losing the house broke something in him. Not the building. The realization of what he'd done. Who he'd hurt. I told her good. That needed to break. Her eyes widened slightly. But she didn't argue. After a while, she stood. Said she should go. I walked her to the door. She turned, looked at me, asked if there was any chance. Any at all. I told her time would tell. If she meant what she said, she'd prove it. Not with flowers, not with tears, with weeks, with months, with patterns. She nodded, stepped onto the porch. The afternoon was cooler now. The sun lower. Leaves skittered across the driveway. Red and brown and gold. Her car door closed softly. The engine purred. She backed out, slow, careful. I watched until she disappeared around the corner. Then I closed the door. Locked it. The roses sat on the coffee table. Bright and gaudy. I picked them up. Took them to the kitchen. Trimmed the stems. Put them in a vase. They looked better with space around them. I set them on the windowsill. Next to the basil. The light hit the petals. Deep red. Almost burgundy. They were beautiful. Despite everything. They were beautiful. I made tea. Sat at the table. Outside, the day faded into evening. The street lamps flickered on. One by one. I thought about Ava's face. The way she looked without her armor. I thought about Noah, broken and trying. I thought about Mark. What he'd say. He'd say people surprise you. Sometimes for the worse. Sometimes for the better. He'd say watch what they do. Not what they say. He'd say protect yourself first. Always. The tea cooled in my hands. I drank it anyway. Every drop. That night I went to bed early. The house was mine. The rules were mine. And maybe, just maybe, there was a door beginning to open. Not wide. Not yet. But a crack. Enough to let a little light through. Enough to see what happened next. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 weeks passed before Noah called again. November had arrived. Cold mornings. Early darkness. The leaves were gone from the trees. Bare branches against gray sky. His voice on the phone was different. Steadier. Older somehow. He asked if he and Ava could come by. Together. He said they had something to say. Something they needed to say in person. I told him Saturday. 4 o'clock. The line went quiet for a moment. Then he thanked me. His voice thick with something I couldn't name. Saturday came cold and clear. I baked bread. Whole wheat. The smell filled the house. Not for them. For the routine. For the comfort of familiar work. The kitchen was warm. Steam on the windows. Flour dust on the counter. At 3:45, I changed my shirt. Combed my hair. Not primping. Just presenting myself as I was. At 4 exactly, a car pulled up. Nose truck. Dented. Muddy. Reliable. They got out together. Slowly. Like people approaching a courthouse. Noah wore his work jacket. Clean but worn. Ava wore jeans. A gray sweater. Her hair loose around her shoulders. No makeup. No jewelry. Just her face. They walked to the door side by side. Not touching. I opened it before they knocked. Noah looked at me. His eyes were different. Clearer. Sadder. He asked if they could come in. I stepped aside. They entered quietly. Removed their shoes without being asked. Old habit. Nose. New habit. Ava's. The living room was tidy. Lamp on. Curtains open. Mark's photo on the mantel. Watching as always. They sat on the couch. Together but not close. I took Mark's chair. Waited. Noah looked at his hands. Calloused. Dirt under the nails. He'd been working hard. I could see it. He started talking. Voice low. Measured. He said he was sorry. Deeply sorry. Sorry for disrespecting me. Sorry for choosing sides. Sorry for being blind. He said the motel taught him something. Humility. The apartment taught him more. Responsibility. Losing the house taught him everything. What mattered. What didn't. He said he'd been a fool. A coward. A bad son. His voice cracked on the last word. Ava put her hand on his knee. Gentle. Supportive. Then she spoke. Her voice was quiet. No performance. No polish. She said she'd written an apology. Then thrown it away. Words on paper felt cheap. Rehearsed. She said she wanted me to know she understood now. What she'd done. What she'd taken. She said she'd grown up fighting for space. For control. Because control felt like safety. But safety built on someone else's erasure wasn't safety. It was theft. She said she stole my home while living in it. And she was ashamed. The room was silent. The furnace clicked on. Warm air whispered. Outside, a dog barked. A car door slammed. Normal sounds. Life continuing. Noah looked up. His eyes wet. He said they weren't asking to move back in. They knew that bridge was burned. Maybe forever. They just wanted me to know they understood. They wanted to try again. Differently. If I'd let them. I sat still. Hands on the armrests. I looked at them. Really looked. Noah's face was thinner. Lines around his eyes. Gray in his beard. Ava's hands were folded. No rings. No polish. Just bare fingers. They looked like people who'd been through something. Not a storm. A reckoning. I asked them what trying again meant. Noah said visiting. If I allowed it. Dinner once a week. Or less. Whatever I wanted. Following my rules. Respecting my space. Never assuming. Always asking. Ava nodded. Said she'd earn back trust. Piece by piece. No shortcuts. No demands. Just time and proof. I let the silence sit. The clock ticked. The house settled. Then I spoke. I told them I'd think about it. But thinking required seeing. And seeing required time. I told them they could come for dinner next Sunday. 5 o'clock. Not earlier. Not later. They'd bring nothing. Touch nothing. Move nothing. They'd eat. They'd talk. They'd leave. And we'd see how it went. Noah's face changed. Relief. Gratitude. Something like hope. Ava's eyes filled. She blinked. Nodded. They stood. Together. Noah stepped toward me. Hesitated. I stood. Opened my arms. He folded into me. Tall as he was. Heavy as he was. He cried against my shoulder. Deep sobs. Years of them. I held him. Patted his back. Said nothing. Sometimes silence is the kindest thing. When he pulled back, his face was red. Wet. Young. Ava stood behind him. Waiting. I looked at her. She stepped forward. Uncertain. I opened my arms again. She came into them. Stiff at first. Then softer. She whispered sorry against my shoulder. Over and over. I didn't say it was okay. Because it wasn't. But I held her anyway. When they left, the sun was setting. Orange and pink through the bare trees. Their truck backed out. Slow. Careful. I watched until the taillights disappeared. Then I closed the door. Locked it. The house felt different. Not empty. Not full. Something in between. I went to the kitchen. Cut a slice of bread. Still warm. The crust crackled under the knife. I ate it plain. Standing by the window. Outside, the sky darkened. Stars beginning to show. The neighbor's porch light came on. Yellow and steady. I thought about Noah's face. The way he broke. I thought about Ava's whispered apologies. I thought about Mark. What he'd say. He'd say watch them. See if the changes stick. He'd say protect your peace. Always. He'd say love doesn't mean surrender. The bread was good. Dense and nutty. I finished it. Brushed the crumbs off my hands. That night I sat in the living room. TV off. Just me and the quiet. The lamp cast shadows on the wall. Mark's photo caught the light. His slight smile. I talked to him sometimes. Out loud. To the empty room. I told him about Noah. About Ava. I told him I was scared. Of trusting again. Of being hurt again. But I was more scared of becoming hard. Of closing the door so tight nothing could enter. Not even love. The house creaked. Settling into night. Outside, the wind picked up. Branches scratched the siding. I went upstairs, changed into my nightgown. In the mirror, I saw my mother again. Her strength, her wariness, her capacity to forgive. But forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It was moving forward with eyes open. I climbed into bed, the sheets cool and clean. Sunday was coming. Dinner. A test. Maybe the first of many. Or maybe the last. Either way, the house was still mine. The rules were still mine. And I'd face whatever came next the same way I'd faced everything. With dignity. With clarity. With the knowledge that I'd survived worse. And I'd survive this too. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Sunday came with snow. Not heavy. Just enough to dust the grass and rooftops. The world looked softer. Quieter. I made pot roast. Carrots and potatoes. The way Mark liked it. The kitchen filled with the smell. Rich and warm. I set the table for 3. My good plates. The ones with blue trim. Not my mother's china. Those stayed in the cabinet. Trust was earned in stages. At 4:30, I changed into a clean sweater. Navy blue. Comfortable. I checked the table. Forks. Knives. Napkins folded simply. Everything ready. Everything in its place. At 5 exactly, the doorbell rang. Not a key in the lock. A doorbell. I opened the door. Noah and Ava stood on the porch. Snow dusting their shoulders. Noah held a bottle. Red wine. Modest label. Ava held nothing. Her hands empty at her sides. I told them to come in. They entered quietly. Stamped the snow off their boots. Removed them at the door without being asked. Noah offered the wine. Said it was for me. Not for dinner necessarily. Just a gesture. I took it. Set it on the counter. Ava looked around. Her eyes careful. Respectful. The house was the same as she'd left it. But she looked different in it. Smaller. More careful. Less certain. The pot roast sat on the stove. Steam rising. I asked them to sit. They took their seats. Noah at his old spot. Ava beside him. I brought the food. Set it in the center of the table. Serving spoons. A basket of rolls. Butter. We passed the dishes in silence. The clink of silverware. The scrape of serving spoons. Noah took small portions. Ava smaller still. I filled my own plate normally. We ate. The first few minutes were quiet. Just chewing. Just breathing. Then Noah spoke. He said the roast was perfect. Just like he remembered. I thanked him. Ava said the carrots were delicious. She asked what seasoning I used. I told her. Thyme. Garlic. A little brown sugar. She nodded. Said she'd never thought of brown sugar. The conversation was small. Careful. Like people learning a new language. But it was conversation. After a while, the silence felt less heavy. Noah asked about the garden. If I was ready for winter. I said yes. The roses were mulched. The beds turned over. Everything dormant until spring. Ava asked about the basil. If it was still on the windowsill. I said yes. Thriving. Getting 6 hours of sun now that the curtains were open. She smiled. Small. Genuine. We talked about weather. About Thanksgiving coming. About Liam's new project at work. Nothing deep. Nothing dangerous. Just the surface of life. Where trust begins. After dinner, Ava asked if she could help with dishes. I said yes. Noah started to stand. I told him to stay. Visit with his father's photo. He smiled. Sad and grateful. Went to the mantel. In the kitchen, Ava and I worked side by side. She rinsed. I dried. The water ran. Warm and steady. She handled the dishes carefully, gently, like they mattered. She asked if I wanted the wine opened. I said no, I'd save it for later. She nodded, rinsed another plate. Then she spoke, voice low. She said she'd been going to therapy twice a week, learning about boundaries, about control, about childhood patterns. She said it was hard, facing things, but necessary. I dried a glass, set it in the cabinet. I told her therapy was good, brave even. She looked at me, eyes uncertain. She asked if I'd ever forgive her. I set the towel down, looked at her directly. I told her forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was a door that opened slowly, inch by inch, week by week. She was pushing it open. But it took time. She nodded, went back to rinsing. We finished the dishes, wiped the counter, hung the towels. In the living room, Noah was sitting, looking at photo albums, old ones, from when he and Liam were boys. Ava joined him, looked over his shoulder. She pointed at one, asked who the child was. Noah said it was him. Age 7, missing his front teeth. She smiled, said he looked happy. He said he was, always was in this house. The words hung in the air. They stayed another hour, looking at photos, talking about small things. At 6:30, they stood to leave. Noah asked if they could come again next week. I said yes. Same time. Ava asked if she could bring dessert. I hesitated, then said yes. Store-bought. Nothing fancy. She nodded, understanding. At the door, Noah hugged me. Briefer this time, but warm. Ava hugged me too, said thank you for the chance. I watched them leave. Snow still falling, light and steady. Their truck pulled away, tail lights red in the white. I closed the door, locked it. The house was mine again. But it felt less lonely. I cleaned the table, put the leftovers away, enough for 2 more meals. Maybe 3. That night I opened the wine, poured a small glass, sat in the living room. Lamp on, TV off. The wine was good, smooth, a little sweet. I thought about dinner, about the careful words, the cautious gestures, about Ava's hands in the dishwater. Noah's face over the photo albums. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't fixed, but it was progress. The next Sunday came, then the next. Each dinner a little easier. Each conversation a little deeper. Ava brought brownies the second week, from the bakery on Maple Street. She remembered they were my favorite. I noticed. Didn't say anything, but I noticed. The third week, she asked about my mother's china. I told her the story. How my mother carried it from Poland. How it survived the war. How it survived everything. Ava listened. Really listened. She said she understood now. Why things mattered. By the 4th week, Noah asked if he could fix the porch railing. It was loose, wobbly, needed attention. I said yes. He came on Saturday, brought his tools, worked for 3 hours. Ava came with him, weeded the front bed, swept the porch. I watched from the window. Them working together, working for me, not to win me back, just to help. The difference mattered. When they finished, I made coffee. We sat on the porch. The railing was solid now. Smooth, steady. Noah ran his hand over it. Said his father taught him that. Measure twice. Cut once. Fix it right. Ava was quiet, looking at the garden, the sleeping beds. She asked what I'd plant in spring. I told her. Tomatoes. Peppers. More basil. She asked if she could help. I said maybe. We'd see. The word maybe felt like progress. That night, alone again, I sat at the kitchen table. The house was mine, still mine, but the silence felt different now. Not empty, not full, just right. I thought about second chances. How they looked. Not like fireworks, not like grand gestures, like dishes washed carefully, like rails fixed properly, like patience, like time, like people learning to show up. Week after week, the window reflected my face. Older, tired, but not defeated. I finished my tea, turned off the lights. Upstairs, I climbed into bed. Outside, the world slept under snow. Inside, something fragile was growing. Not forgiveness yet, not quite, but something close, something that might become trust. If we were careful, if we were patient, if we kept showing up. One Sunday at a time. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Spring came late that year. March was cold. April colder still. But by May, the earth softened. Green pushed through. 6 months had passed since I changed the locks. 6 months of Sunday dinners. Of careful words. Of slow repair. Noah and Ava had their own place now. A small rental across town. 2 bedrooms. Narrow kitchen. But theirs. They paid their own bills. Made their own choices. And came to my house like guests. Respectful guests. The garden needed work. Winter had been hard on it. Dead branches. Weeds. Matted leaves from fall. On the first Saturday in May, Ava knocked at 9. She wore old jeans, a faded t-shirt, gardening gloves in her back pocket. She asked if today was good for planting. I said yes. We worked side by side, turning soil, pulling weeds. The earth smelled rich, dark, full of promise. I showed her where to plant the basil. How deep, how far apart. She listened, nodded, did it exactly right. The sun was warm, not hot, perfect. Birds sang in the oak tree. The one Mark planted 30 years ago. We worked in comfortable silence. After an hour, she asked me something. She asked how I knew when to hold firm, when to push back. I sat back on my heels, brushed dirt from my hands. I told her about the bakery, about proofing dough. You can't rush it. You can't force it to rise faster. If you do, it collapses in the oven. Falls flat. People are the same. Relationships too. Some things need time, and pressure only ruins them. She was quiet, absorbing. Then she asked how I knew I wouldn't lose Noah forever. I told her the truth. I didn't know. I couldn't know. But losing myself would have been worse. She nodded slowly, went back to planting. We worked until noon. Planted basil, tomatoes, peppers. The beds looked good, neat, organized, alive. Inside, I made sandwiches. Tuna on wheat, chips on the side. We ate at the kitchen table. The one Mark built. Ava ran her hand over the wood. Traced a scratch with her finger. She said she understood now. Why I fought so hard. This house wasn't just walls. It was a life, a history. I told her it was more than that. It was proof that I existed, that I mattered. She looked at me, eyes clear. She said she saw me now. Really saw me, not as an obstacle, not as Noah's mother, as Clara, a woman who built something, who deserved respect. The words settled between us. I told her thank you. For learning, for trying. She said thank you for not giving up. On Noah, on her. We finished lunch, washed the dishes together. A routine now. Easy, familiar. That afternoon, Noah came by. After work, still in his boots. He wanted to check the gutters. Spring rain had been heavy. I said yes. He climbed the ladder. pulled out leaves and debris. Ava held the ladder steady, called up updates. I watched from the porch. The railing he'd fixed solid beneath my hand. When he finished, he came down, smiled at me. He said the gutters were clear. Should be good all summer. I thanked him. He looked at the garden, at the fresh planted beds. He said it looked like Mom and Dad's garden from when he was little. Ava said it was, that I'd taught her the layout. No's face softened, remembering. They stayed for dinner. Pasta. Simple. Garlic bread on the side. We talked about work. About Liam's new girlfriend. About summer plans. Normal conversation. Easy. Unforced. After dinner, we sat on the porch. The evening cool and clear. Ava asked about Mark. About how we met. I told her. Church social. 1976. He asked me to dance. I said no 3 times. He asked a 4th. Noah laughed. Said that sounded like Dad. I said stubbornness ran in the family. We all smiled at that. As the sun set, they prepared to leave. Noah hugged me at the door. Said he loved me. Said he was sorry it took so long to get here. I told him some lessons take time. The important ones always do. Ava hugged me too, held on a little longer. She whispered thank you for the second chance. I told her she'd earned it. Day by day, week by week, they drove away. Taillights fading in the dusk. I stood on the porch. The air smelling like fresh dirt and possibility. Inside, I made tea. Sat in the living room. Mark's photo caught the lamplight. His crooked smile. I told him we did it. We held the line. And they came back. Different. Better. The house was quiet. But not lonely. The quiet felt earned now. Chosen. I thought about the winter. The locked doors. The hard conversations. I thought about dignity. About what it cost to keep it. People said I was harsh. Unforgiving. Cold. But they didn't understand. Dignity wasn't optional. Respect wasn't negotiable. Not even for family. Especially not for family. Because family should know better. The tea cooled in my hands. I drank it anyway. Outside, the streetlights came on. One by one. The neighborhood settling into evening. Somewhere a dog barked. A screen door slammed. Life continuing. Normal. Steady. I thought about the garden. About seeds in dark soil. About patience. About faith in things unseen. About waiting for the right conditions before things could grow. The basil would sprout in a week. Maybe 2. The tomatoes would take longer. Summer before they bore fruit. But they would. If tended properly. If given what they needed. Respect worked the same way. Plant it. Water it. Protect it from weeds. And eventually, something good grows. That night I went to bed satisfied. Not happy exactly. But content. The house was mine. The rules were mine. And the people I loved had learned to honor both. In the mirror, I saw my mother's face again. Strong. Weathered. Unbroken. She survived worse than this. So did I. And I'd survive whatever came next. Because I knew something now. Something important. A woman who surrenders her home surrenders herself. But a woman who holds the line keeps everything. Her dignity. Her peace. Her life. I turned off the light. Climbed into bed. The sheets were cool. The pillow soft. Outside, the world slept. Inside, I rested. Not because the fight was over. But because I'd won the only battle that mattered. The one for myself. The house creaked. Settling. Breathing. Mark's house. My house. Our house. The place where I laid every brick. Paid every dollar. The place where I raised my sons. The place where I finally learned to stand. And no one would ever take that from me again. Not with anger. Not with guilt. Not with tears or threats or silent treatment. This was my ground, my foundation, and I would die on it. Peacefully, powerfully, knowing I never bowed. The window framed a piece of moon, silver and cool. I closed my eyes and slept the sleep of a woman who knew her worth. Deep, dreamless, undisturbed.